Welcome to New Realities. I'm Alan Steinfeld, and this program is about the exploration of consciousness and the transformation of this world into higher frequency energies. And I search out people who've had this transformation or part of upgrading this planet, part of bringing new information, new insights. And today's guest is one of them. Lowell Johnson has an incredible story where he actually met these beings that vibrate at a different level, but they're physical. And he met them on Mount Shasta. He went into a portal there, and he's going to tell us about that story. Welcome, Lowell. Thank you.
Good morning, Alan. That's a mouthful. And if we really kind of cover as far as we wish to get sometime today within a reasonable amount of time, because that's an afternoon with Lowell conversation that you're talking about framing in.
Well, we can do a series here. We don't have to go through
Let's start with TELOS, though.
Yeah, TELOS, the city supposedly under Mount Shasta, which Lowell says he was in, and I think I tend to believe him because he seems like a regular kind of guy. Let's talk about, I guess you not your whole story, but like your awakening and then how you connected with the beings at Shasta. Right. Why don't we go to, hearing about Mount Shasta and your interest and what pulled you there, and then what happened?
Okay, that was July last year. It was in the middle of the pandemic. Finally, travel and lockdown was being relaxed in the state of California. And I just needed to get out in nature where I can always find solace and, commune with something bigger than me. And in Shasta, it had been said that there were energetic portals. It wasn't my first choice, I should say that. When I was planning to get out, I was just going to hop in the car by myself and actually head for the Southwest, where in the Four Corners there, you can find lots of national park options. Oh my God. As I was making preparations, I was seeing Facebook feeds that were saying some of those parks might not even be open. I went, okay, well, then let's not go drive there. And then Mount Shasta was absolutely the next thing that popped in my head. Driven by it many times, had heard about it, but had never really been there. I went there, and in short, whatever magic that they said is there energetically, that's there, palpable, absolutely. Oh yeah, I got in touch with it when I was there. I was hiking every day. I'm not a young man, but I was hiking like I was. And it took me about a week to realize that physically I should be drained every day the way I'm hiking, because you're making changes in elevation all day long. And the next day, here we go again. It wasn't a week into it where I realized there's some different energy here that's just palpable. I wander off path. I don't like to take the trails everyone else does. They're lovely, don't get me wrong, but I find energy in different places. And so I wander off. And you've heard about legends of interactions with Saint Germain. Well, that's no legend. That stuff really happened. That guy lended his knowledge to Guy Ballard, and Guy spoke profoundly about their interactions in ways that benefited humanity when you paid attention to that kind of content. I had hoped for such an encounter. Never did I realize what was about to happen to me. There was a day that I had sat after a visit to the Peace Garden, which is a lovely place in Shasta. And I was sitting at noon at a picnic table at the old ski bowl parking lot. There's only 4 of them there, but I got there early enough to find one. And as I was looking at Shasta, I was looking at the shadows from Shastina. And it looked like there were places over there that could be, man, that looks like almost a cave opening. So I thought that'd be a good place to go and explore one day, because it didn't look like it was going to take me long to get there. It was just going to be a hike off trail and up.
No one told you about Shastina before, right? You just noticed it on your own.
No.
Mhm.
I had been led to, especially the month before, I'd had a past life regression about curiosities I had about Atlantis. And only through that was a reference to the Lemurians even made. I had no wherewithal of them. Of course, you can't go to Mount Shasta, throw a stone without something saying Telos on it, and Adama's picture everywhere. So I was familiar with that, but it wasn't my expectation to hunt these people down or have them tap me on the shoulder, which in the end is pretty much what happened. I had found that the day that I finally did go up there were some energetic places I could begin to feel now, and you just want to stay there and plant your light. This particular day I found one going in that direction at a place that looked like it could have been a cave. Well, it turned out it was just a big shadow, and that's the way that the mountain hit it after noon. And nonetheless, there were these like 1, 2, and finally 3 right against the face, this outcropping of rock, where when you sat in it, man, you could feel really cool energy. So I sat there for a while and planted my light, had some water, grapes, was listening to music through my ear pods. And as that was happening,
But,
all of a
but,
sudden,
but wait, you
go
weren't
ahead.
looking for anything, or were you looking for something? You were just hiking, noticed something that looked like maybe a cave, but it was a shadow.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I got Mount Shasta behind me on my screen here. And is Shastina the little piece across from Mount Shasta there?
Yeah, that's actually the perspective from the north side. So
Mhm.
yes, then you see Shasta on the left and Shastina is on the right.
Mhm.
Where I like to go and hike up Everett Memorial Highway, you would see that inverted.
Right. So you're on Shastina, you see the shadow, and then what happens there?
Well, I'm sitting in this little outcropping of these 3 energy places. This one I can hop behind 3 rocks. There's enough room for me to sit in, and behind me is the mountain, and against it is a bunch of dried brush. That's what's there. So after I had put the grapes away, I was done with the water, and I was listening to music. All of a sudden, the music stopped. And as I pulled my phone out of my pocket, the phone had gone dead. There's no power. Well, it was fully charged not 25 minutes ago. And it's got a multi-sense. I begin to see what feels like a shadow, like coming from below me and almost like a canopy over me. And as soon as I'm trying to figure that out, I feel a breeze from behind me. And when I turn around to take a look, there's now a hole where my back was just resting, maybe 9 feet tall.
It wasn't there before, you're saying. It's like, but there was a shift in vibration that you had went through.
No. Well, there was energy there that I connected with when I got there. I never really took that into consideration, but yeah, that probably played a part. Look, in the end, all of this was a dimensional trip. It was a dimensional experience. That happens when you're at the right vibration with that frequency.
Mhm.
That's when you get to see this stuff. I had been in that zone for a couple of years, Alan. That my spirituality had got me there after my second ayahuasca journey in 2018. Since then, I can get there regularly. Well, it's just taken me, or whatever the universe had in mind for me, to get here to this point with where I sit today, and after the magnificent stuff that happened in August. But let's finish Telos.
Yeah. Because
to
telos,
not spend a lot of time on it, because people, I mean, I've done, I don't know, there's 6 different interviews of that, and we can revisit that in detail at
well, I
some
just want
point,
to
but
know
it's
because
there.
it's so magical what happened to you
Oh,
at that
yeah.
cave. So you're sitting back, you look around, the doors open, something opened up, and then what? Just to kind of
But jumped up and turned around, and there's like a little rise, and as the light adjusts so I can see down here, it looks like there's somebody down there on left hand side. And as I fully turned up or stood up, someone said, "Would you like to see Telos?" Well, my heart raced a moment, but I wasn't going to not take advantage of this opportunity. And so I kind of went up this rise, and this was a, a path that was going to take me down. As when my eyes adjusted enough to kind of make this person out, I thought maybe he was like my size. I'm 6 feet tall. When I got there closer, and he was maybe 10 yards down on the left hand side. The light wasn't great, but it was behind me. When I got closer, this guy was not my size. He is 8 feet tall, had white garment on, looked Scandinavian to me, similar to you. His hair was long like that, but what was striking is that from what I could tell in the lighting that was there, his skin was like flawless. So I can't tell how old this person is. He just had like the age things that we show in this little biosuit were not present in this particular being. He was magnificent.
was he the
So
guy who
as
said
I
you
got closer, he said,
was he the guy who said to you, do you want to see Telos? That's he
he is
said
the guy.
that. But
Yeah.
okay, so you
He's,
got
yeah.
closer and you weren't freaked out because he was 8 feet tall, were you?
No, he was as benevolent a being, and you're in a different energy. Look, you've forgotten about 3-dimensional good, bad stuff. You left that behind at the door. You just felt like love in this environment. It was inviting. All you wanted to do was explore, how do I get to more of this? Anyway, when I got close to him, he said, "Well, you can call me Alex." I said, "Well, that'll be easy to remember. That's my son's name." And he said, "Yeah, we know about your son. Follow me." So we followed this
I
path
just want to get clear.
downward to an area where we could see that there was light coming from the other side.
I just want to ask you, he is talking to you in English. It's not telepathic.
Yes.
You're hearing these words out.
No.
And what kind of accent did he
Yes.
have? What kind of?
If I had to characterize it, it was rather British. If there was like a hybrid between Australian and British, call it that. But where we're going in this next step, we won't use language, as you know. We will be telepathic. However, sound, vibration, symbols, colors, that's what's next on the palette. Because what we need to say, we're not going to have to choose what language I have to deliver it in. German, English, Japanese, what? No. You and I, we get it. So as we got down to the bottom, go ahead.
No, I'm just now wondering, a lot of people go there, but why were you picked, you think? Why did you?
Well, I know after the fact. It took me months to assimilate why that was. And that didn't come until the following April. You want me to skip forward to that, or you want to go back
No.
into
Let's
Magic
go into
City?
Telos. No, let's definitely look inside the mountain. So he says, you want to see Telos? And what happens then?
Yes. Then we walked down this incline. And as we got closer to where we could see there was light coming from the other end, it opened up to what I would call a staging area. It's pretty big, because on the opposite side of this, there are 5 more of these tubes like what we came out of. So clearly these are lava tubes underneath the mountain, which would make sense. Behind me where we came from, I had looked at kind of the last moment, whatever opening I came from, there was no light coming from that. So it was dark behind us. But as soon as we got into this area, immediately on the left-hand side, there's this platform that's maybe 6 by 6. and on it is like two bucket seats. They're not, that's what I call it because I got no other reference for it, but that's what these things are. I don't know what the material was. Crystal, metal, or wood, or I don't know. Alex had walked around to the other side and got in this seat and invited me to sit next to him. And as soon as I did, this thing levitated and it moved toward the middle to, with wind going by you. There was none of that. It was like I was motionless in this thing, but you can tell we're moving through this tube as we got closer to the other side, and the light's coming from the other side. Now the light coming in is picking up the crystals that are embedded into this lava tube, and it's like coming through a freaking kaleidoscope. Every inch you moved, the light hit it a different way, and it was magical. And then you opened up into the city of Telos. You're on level 1 of 5, and immediately he takes this craft that we're hovering in to a cityscape picture like you've seen in photographs before. Here is the layout for the city of Telos.
So the vehicle is anti-gravity, right? And you are through this
Most definitely.
You're going through this tunnel that opens up, and you see this huge city, huh? It's like a lot of, it's like,
it's circular in orientation. In the middle of it, there's a white pyramid, and it has a capstone on the top. The capstone has its own qualities. It was given to them by Venus. And I didn't know that day. It was white when I saw it.
It was given to them by Venus, you said? Who,
Venus.
The Venusians came and visited the Telosians. Okay.
As I understand it, that's where it came from. It serves a purpose, though. Because I was there on Sunday, it was white. I learned afterward from Diane Robbins, who has been around this TELOS community and communicating that for decades. She had indicated that the color of that is reminiscent to, what people adorn themselves in that day. If it would have been Saturday, it would have been purple. If it would have been Wednesday, it would have been green. How cool is that?
But wait, there are no days because there's no sun rise or set. It's all kind of uniform light, right? I mean, there are no days there.
No, well, that's a whole, well, let's talk about the light thing, because that took me a while to dive in. I could not see whatever the top of was in this cavity. You couldn't see the top, and yet there's no sunlight coming in. So where does this light, like sunlight, come from? And how come it casts no shadows? All you can kind of tell yourself is that, they figured out a way to make these crystals provide whatever light source they can. But look, they're higher dimensional beings, and they can pretty much manifest what they wish, right?
But they're also physical. They're physical beings.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And
until 5th dimension, we're all physical. This is the best part of the Earth experiment we finally got to. We paid our dues learning duality. Now in 3D, we're done with those lessons. Now, New Earth, and what is next is finally that whole, we realize we're all one. And we all realize that everyone's individual contribution has some place that's going to play a role movement down the way. But the way that the Earth operates right now, the switch is just about to be turned. And now that lots of us light workers have just been given the tools to help from this side.
Right. No, and I think that's probably why this experience happened to you. And this is why I'm so happy you're sharing this with this audience, because we have to know there's more to reality than what we've been brainwashed, programmed, conditioned to think. So you're there in the ship, you do this big view of the whole city, which is about
crystal everywhere, different forms. There are some buildings that catch your eye, and one to me, from this staging area off to the right immediately, there was a circular building there that caught my eye. he was explaining the nature of there is a king and queen there, but he also explained the nature of the Council of 13 and who they are. You know, there's 6 masculine and 6 feminine to balance the energy, and then Adama is the high priest, and he's the 13th body. There's the governing body, which really there are no problems to fix. There's only ways to improve situations and help the universe evolve. Here is, you know, what they're waiting for.
Right.
Their interest, and the reason, one of the reasons I got chosen. So I'll skip through the rest of the descriptions.
Well, okay,
because
go to the reason, but the descriptions are so spectacular, but we can go back. I mean,
we'll talk about the 3rd level and hydroponics and that amazing technology, but the council meeting at the end was the most significant, because here's where the exchange. Here's
so you're
how
traveling through the city. I think you told me before you finally land at some, I guess, domed room, meeting place.
It was a circuit, that circular building I had mentioned earlier over on this side. Turns out it was the council chambers. It's round in orientation, and it's got these flat crystal panels that, you know, turn it into a circle. The front of it is the equivalent of like French doors, but there's no doors.
So,
and when we go ahead.
No, you get off the ship. So go ahead. You're saying, yeah. So
yeah, we just stepped off this device, and as soon as I get there, I see these etches in each side of the entry to this place that look really familiar to me. The first day I ever visited Mount Shasta, I went to a place called the Blue Star Child Gallery. It's Haruko's place. This girl, and whatever gifts she has to express these creations are amazing. The day that I first saw them, the first one that just blew me away, and I had no chance to really ask her anything about it, was 10 feet tall and 3 feet wide. I later learned these things are drawn by hand, without rulers, without any kind of curvature tools. It takes her months for these, but she gets this expression in her head, and these things are the most beautiful light codes I've ever seen, and unique, perfectly symmetrical on each side. They're amazing creations. Never mind when she just shows off her little passionate creative side. Oh, those bunnies and that are creative, but these things had meaning. Anyway, when I mentioned it to Alex, he says, oh yeah, those are Haruko's, and those are exactly what they are. That one is the blueprint for the new world, and this one is the new angelic code. It's the human framework. They were amazing.
Wow.
So when you walk through this opening immediately, well, I always want to describe the room first, but you can't neglect what you feel as soon as you come in. And right in your heart core, you felt like this hug expression that just kept, just pushing at your heart. You couldn't help but just feel melted into every compassionate, loving thought was just amplified by this etheric hug. Then taking the beauty of this room, which is all crystal and fashion, except for the table is in fact wood, but inlaid in it is amazing crystals and patterns that are beautiful, with 13 chairs all the way around it. As I was taking all that in, 5 people enter the room. There are 2 females on each side, and Adama, who is taller than all of them, this guy's 9 feet tall with an inch, are moving toward us.
Everybody else is 8 feet. Everybody, all the others are sort of 8 feet.
Everyone's shorter but him, but I'm the shortest guy in the room by far. I'm invited to take a seat, and they kind of girl on each side. And I was about to learn why I was invited. The first woman who spoke, Shyama, I remember her name because when the discussions began, it was really her that seemed to chair the meeting. everyone else described who they were, but I can't for the life of me remember what their names are, except of course Adama and Alex were sitting over here. When she began to say that they believed, this was, remember, last July, that the shift was imminent, winter solstice last year. Man, at first I was thrilled by the news, because certainly this had been the same conclusion I had come to. And there were bits of me that were saying, I know I incarnated back here for a while, for a purpose. And whatever shift is coming is going to happen within this carnation. Now, I'm in my mid 60s. The clock is ticking. So don't tell me that you can't see that all of the elements are in place and ready. So this was my mindset back in July. Again, I had no idea who they were or why. It was a recognition. Can you pause for just a second?
Okay, so you're sitting there. Let me just go back to this two shot. You're sitting there. They've introduced themselves, and they're speaking in English.
Yes.
And then,
Yes.
What do they say to you particularly?
This is where Shyama advises me that they are of the same thinking, that the shift, that Earth's rise in consciousness was going to happen around winter solstice. Now, we all know it's not a switch, and we'll revisit that whole discussion in just a moment. However,
Winter solstice that's coming up.
Me, I had
the last winter solstice.
Last winter solstice, and so this was in preparation for that.
Mm-hmm.
When the time came, well, that's reason number 3. We'll get to that. The reasons why I was asked to come in was, one, they knew that I could hold 5th dimensional consciousness. So these conversations I could experience, and really, I thought in my head it was that I could understand that perspective. I didn't know I was holding 5th dimensional consciousness at the time. So, okay, everyone's happy I can do that. 2, they said, we know you're the protector of Gaia. 3 was that when the shift was imminent, that they had hoped, they were anxious to communicate with the surface people again, that among all of the stuff that they have in Middle Earth waiting to come back and share with the surface, they want to share what gifts and technologies they've got. Their perspective is that, like, us human beings are wonderful co-creating beings, are we not? And the entire rest of the galaxy is watching this experiment to see what we do. Humanity has not been past really 3D before. We finally get to achieve to the level that now we get to use gifts similar to what they have, and they will assist us with what they've got. But with our emotional co-creativity, let's see what we do with that and watch the galaxy, watch this place evolve. Holy cow, it's going to be cool, exciting. But holy cow, there's also some shifts that are coming. And you're seeing witness of these, geomagnetic effects. This is how it's taking place.
What are we seeing? What effects are happening that you're noticing?
There has been, we're always affected by solar storms and a stream of, plasma coming from the sun forever. What we hadn't seen until, entirely, I think 2016, we entered a whole different place in the galaxy where our entire solar system and Alcyon and all the other planets that we're subsets of have now hit into this band of enhanced photon energy. And we're in this for the next 2,000 years. This is the golden age. This is why consciousness is rising so quickly. All of that photon energy that we're ingesting this electromagnetic, because we're just this energetic body anyhow, is now opening our DNA up to the stuff that we remember. Holy cow. It took me 6 decades to connect the dots on who I am and what I'm really doing here. Look at the younger generations. They are not as unaware as you and I came into this incarnation are. They get it. And that's why when you hear some of these kids, they're articulate beyond themselves. You can just tell that there's a wisdom that they've got hold of that I'm not quite sure where it comes from, but their reach into the Akashic record is profound.
So what does the council say to you in particular?
They are interested in me helping as an emissary when the time comes.
Well, and the time has come.
Flattered and oh well, yeah, the time has come. Okay. Yes. They had asked me at the end. Adama had said after that idea was presented and the rationale behind it. Adama had said that the council had met and they were unanimous in their decision, and they had hoped that I would accept this responsibility. Okay. I first thought, of course, is why me? You don't say those things out loud, but then humility sinks in, and you can't deny those emotions. But I kind of muster out I would be honored, and with that, this meeting's over. They got their answer. They were up, bowed, and on their way. And Alex and I made our way back out. Got back to the staging area, and I hadn't said anything other than the answer to the question. I was just taking in the experience, and whatever I could take out of it with me, that's what my goal was. But I had 2 questions for certain, and they were these. 1, do I get to come back? The question was, yes, you'll get to return before the shift, which really didn't give me a deadline, but okay, he gave me an answer. And number 2, can I tell anybody about my experience? They said that you can tell anybody you want, because no one's going to find their way in here the way you found it without our assistance.
Wait, the other question, but the other question I have is, what does that mean, that the assignment they gave you? What do you have to do? What is your mission?
When the day comes and consciousness balances so that we can communicate with them at their same level. Look, they're 4th and 5th dimensional beings. In order for them to come into this environment and communicate, they got to drop their vibration. Yeah, I wouldn't do that if I were them. And so these types of communication always take place at their dimensional level. Makes sense, right? But look at how we can reach in. And at the time, Alan, I didn't realize that was in fact what was taking place. I thought I was physically 3D, had got invited into TELOS for God knows what reason. That was a dimensional experience. The first one that I could really put my fingerprint on.
But is there a day that is coming? Is it a single day, or is it a wave that's coming to the planet?
That's a good question. I certainly don't have the answer to it. I can speculate. I can go on, but I would have to tell you where else I am since TELOS to kind of give you the conclusions I would draw. So we might as well start going down that rabbit hole.
Wait, before you go down that route, I want to know, you're back, you get on the ship with Alex, you go back through the lava tube, you're back outside, and how much time has,
I got back to the original staging area. I felt like I was in there for 4 or 5 hours, linearly, in my head. I was taking in a lot of information and showing a lot of stuff where, we hovered for a while and got to actually just take this thing in. I wish I could take my brain out and let you all plug into what I saw that day, because what a movie that would be. Unfortunately, you're just going to have to live vicariously through these things until the door opens. But look, they want to open it. They're ready to open it. It's this right now, my opinion and my advice is that people need to get their vibration in line. Find your alignment now. And these things will be presented to you. I'm going to show you some other crazy examples of what I've been shown and what's happened with me. But the truth is, it's in all of us.
Yeah. Yeah. So felt like you were gone 4 or 5 hours, but it was only 20 minutes when you actually got back.
No, it was
what?
I took photographs, both from the car when I left back at the mountain, so I could get kind of a perspective. This is where I'm going, and so I'd always have a picture like there's where I went. That was at 12:44. I returned to the truck, took a picture at 1:44.
So we've gone out, but you weren't taking pictures inside Telos or on Telos.
My phone was
was zapped. Okay. Right. Okay. So let's go to, okay, you're back and now you're totally probably, would you say, shaken up by the experience, energized? What?
How do you take that in? And who do you talk to about it?
Yeah.
There's a lot of, I've had to process a lot of things on my own, and really it's happened that way. There's a reason why my life lined up the way that it did and why my lifestyle is such, because I was supposed to focus on these things. So now that I'm here and it's a little clearer, back then I had no idea what the hell that meant or what it was for or how to assimilate it. And I wasn't able to return until April. And of course,
of this year, April 2021.
Yeah. So you can see, first of all, look how accelerated the freaking timeline is, right?
Right.
Yeah. And this is just my situation. I can tell you, I've heard from lots of people in the meantime whose awakening is also coming on. So it's no mistake that it's a lot broader.
But you were shifted.
We know.
You were shifted from that time in July and to now, and then you go back to the mountain, look for the opening in April of 2021, and what happens?
Well, in April, there was the reason I got to go back there, and I didn't get to hike back. I wanted to, believe me, but at that time of year, the roads are still closed off. If you're familiar with the area, sometimes, depending on that Everett Memorial Highway that goes all the way up to the top, sometimes you can get to Bunny Flat if the road's not closed lower, which is like an 11-mile drive from Mount Shasta. And then the last part, when I got there in April, yes, you could get to Bunny Flat, but the road had so much snow, it was 6 feet high. And that's the last 3 miles up to the peak. So there's no driving up to where I had gone before and then hiked from. The only way, if you wish to get there, was you're going to hike from Bunny Flat and go as the crow flies. Well, I wasn't prepared to do that through the snow, and I didn't have time. I had met through different panels Ruben Langdon, and Ruben does a series on Gaia and sends his own platform of Interview with ED. Here was an opportunity for us to exchange my story, because he found it fascinating and thought, here's an episode. The connection took place because Bill Holman, who was the skull keeper for the Mitchell Hedges skull, were moving throughout the country and documenting these experiences people were having with the skull. The last stop was Mount Shasta the week of April 10th. So if I could coordinate time to be there sometime that week, we could talk about things for the episode. And that's where I thought it would be. But the moment I got there, when we all got together the first day to kind of just meet one another, Bill Holman's got the crystal skull out, and I'm sitting in front of it for the first of 3 times over the next 3 days. And so now I've become part of what I called the Skull Squad. And we were on adventures for the next 3 days with the skull together in some sacred spots in the snow.
What did the skull say to you? Because when you put your third eye up to those skulls, you do get a communication. I mean, I
I
did.
didn't, I'll tell you, I was very careful with this thing. When I first sat down in front of it, and Bill was on the other side, and he's a wonderful guide because he understands enough about how to lead you to the place where you can open up and find out what there's to explore without putting over it, some not having this a pure experience. He's a master at it. He's a great to have this thing. So at first it's facing him and he's trying to just get the energy in. So your hands are around it. I know being around crystals and having a new energetic appreciation for everything that I don't touch things immediately because you can feel their energy without that. When he turned it around at me, this particular skull, which has two pieces, by the way, because the jaw is separate, when you look in it, in those eyes from where you are, you can go right into the next dimension. And so I neglected to do it the first time, and here's why. I'm in a room with 14 other people, and they're about to do some B-roll and get things ready for an episode. It's not time for me to go anywhere else in this thing. So I didn't let it go. I didn't go. But I did remember seeing this thing before. And when all that wherewithal came around, I had seen that thing in Atlantis.
Oh, that was a flashback you had from Atlantis.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
So then what? How were you changed by the visit to Telos and the crystal skull? I mean, what was the shift there?
I'm still, look, like you described, I'm just another guy. Yes, I have had some really cool metaphysical adventures. And I can't deny that. There's a spiritual part of us that we forgot about a long time ago. And when you connect to it, like I've had the time to and had the interest in, there's lots of things you give up. But man, when you go that deep, look at what is revealed to you. I have a purpose. There's a reason why it's me going this route. And that's going to be evident
What
soon.
is the reason, though? What is that reason?
Once we finish today and people can see what a light connection really is, then my purpose will make more sense to others. Okay. And what I'm here to do. Because in the end, the answer to your question is I could take the gifts that I just received and ascend and have it be done. And there are many times last fall, I said exactly that to myself. Why would I stay in this environment when this is just crazy? When I can go to the next thing already and kind of look back at you all, the answer was we didn't give you these gifts so that you could ascend. We gave you these gifts so that you could help others get where you are. But in my particular case, I had lots of help along the way, and I have a greater purpose. It's not that I don't care for humanity. Believe me, I do. I already know I'm one with all of you. And so part of me is in all of you. I am here.
Mm-hmm. Well, talk about your gifts a little
bit. The protector
bit.
of Gaia. Well,
talk about
to protect the planet.
Can you talk about your gifts?
The ascension.
Talk about your gifts a little bit that you have to share here.
I had back in April, there was one. Well, I neglected to talk about Sedona. I happened to be there at
Suzanne Ross's.
Suzanne Ross, lovely Suzanne's event. I was invited to speak for the first time and loved it when I was there in Sedona. Before I left, someone, Yuki, thank you, had taken a photograph of this rock spire with cathedral rock in the background and said, there's an energetic spot you need to check before you leave. So she sent me the picture and, I found the spot, and I'll be darned. And if something wasn't energetic that was there that like set the tone for something to come. So whatever I carried from Sedona and brought back the next time I went to Shasta was in April. And the first encounter at Ascension Rock with Heather and Matthew, who put me in ceremony there, unbeknownst to me, and opened up that ability to sense. I had a friend who could pick up a crystal and energetically tell you everything about how it, what it was, and I envied that, and I always wanted to have that. So be careful what you ask for until when they really come. That ability is not just limited to crystals, Lowell. That any sentient being I can connect with, and my heart core can connect with them easily. That, together with the fact that I can bilocate, I can go to other places on the timeline. When I mix those two gifts together, means that you and I could communicate, because I already, my heart core thinks a lot of you. It's easy for me to just take your aura in and just a little wander down your timeline and see where it takes us. But the very first time that that happened, I wasn't trying to do it. And I was hearing a story about one of my colleagues at the Skull Squad explain how he had been electrocuted earlier in his life. And I was connected in a zone when that news came in. It showed me this is no carnival trick. This is not anything that you want to abuse. It's like ayahuasca. There's nothing recreational about any about this. They're wonderful tools to have, but boy, here are the limitations, and here is an outcome that might not be what you're looking for. So use them wisely and carefully.
Did anything happen when you went to Shasta in April last year on the mountain
That
with
was
TELOS?
No, not in April, because I still couldn't get there, and I didn't have time. I had a 4-day window, and it was really occupied with Ruben and the Skull Squad adventure and all that. Kind of took until Thursday at noon when I had to leave. I got there Sunday night, and there was little time to do any hiking at all. And again, I was ill-equipped. I wasn't ready to hike in the snow. When I went back in May, is when I had an opportunity to do so. The road was still closed, though, from Bunny Flat. So if I was going to make it, and I was determined, people ask me, when you go back, where was your favorite place to hike? Well, you go back to this place where you had this phenomenal experience, of course. So I decided I'm gonna hike it. I scoped it out the first day I got there, so I saw the road was open. Here's how far I can go. Okay, great. I know I'm gonna have to leave from Bunny Flat, and I'm gonna go as the crow flies.
And then what happened? You walked for a couple of hours, right?
15,223 steps later. Took me 4 hours to get there. But I will say, in its defense, it wasn't that it took me that long to negotiate the ups and downs, because there were elevation changes twice. Oh yeah, you get to like 7,900 feet and you feel good, but you got to go in another valley. And anyway, it's not as the crow flies as people would think.
We're not flying.
And this time, however, those dimensional abilities I'd had, I saw the forest in a whole different way. I could see places off trail that look like energetic signatures, that look like this could be a fairy garden, in places where nobody, if anybody, had ever been here before. Was very few, but they stood out as energetic signatures, and that was cool. So the 4 hours, a lot of that was just spent with me sitting in those areas, taking that stuff in, because all of my senses are much more acute now that my DNA has been cracked open. I see colors and hear sounds and things that the rest of you don't get to see or ignore, or probably both. But holy cow, when you stop to take this in, there's a whole different realm around us that is waiting to be discovered if you just take the time to see it.
So what happened? You get to that same place. It took you 4 something hours, 15,000 steps.
Yeah.
And then what happens when you get there?
Well, this time when I walked up to get closer to it, because remember those other two places that I said felt like energetic signatures? This time I could see them going up the side. It was almost like a stepping stone in front of me. I saw, if you could envision like heat coming off a sideway, but with form and shape, that's what an energetic signature to me now looks like. So I saw that little one here and this one. And then when I got up on the front this time, remember how when I said the wind had come from behind me and that portal had opened up? I could see that energetic signature there. The surface was there and intact, and the dried brush was in front of it. But I could see where this had been a portal in the past. So I went in just to pay homage to the place. I turned around, looked back from where I came from, back toward the parking lot, planted light like I always do. And I'll be darned while I was doing that if I didn't feel a breeze from behind me again. I turned around and the portal's open. Not just open, but Shyama, there she stands just inside on the other side of the hump. So we chatted for a half an hour, and then we stayed and just looked at things for another half an hour.
You
I was
chatted,
there for, roughly,
you chatted out. So you didn't go back into TELOS. You just was talking to Shyama
no,
on the, and
she was here.
what was she saying to you? What kind of things?
Well, the first thing she said, so they call you Starbuck now. And I said, well, I don't know how you know that, but yes, they do. And she said, I had questions, of course, since back then. I had somebody the answer, why me? And it happened to be Matthew of the Matthew and Heather friends. After my adventure up there, Matthew had said, and his family is indigenous, and they've been in the area up there in the mountains for generations. They've had experiences with nature up there that's profound, and they're tuned into the land. So spending time with him and having his hands on me was a blessing. Of course, how does that happen? Well, he was placed in my path for a reason, of course. But he had said, well, you know the reason why they let you in, right? And I said, tell me. He goes, because you're one of them. Yeah, you came from there. After you start to do your past life regressions and connect the dots. Yes, in fact, I was there. And I know what role I played. I was Lemurian like the rest of us. But I had some other things that I had done and other responsibilities along the way. But here's where we are today.
Well, I feel like I'm from there too. I've had a strong
Everybody is.
to the
Yeah.
earth.
Think
What?
about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it makes sense to me. So
Yeah.
this is not at the center of the earth. This is a open, hollow place deep within the interior. Is that it?
We want to understand it the way human brains are three-dimensional.
Right.
We do not have the capacity to understand fourth dimension layers yet, like I can. I can see them around me right now. There are layers of things that are all around us that we're just oblivious to because our frequency doesn't match that environment, but they're here nonetheless. We're almost there, especially like you've been around this for so long, pal. Everybody is this far away from the ones that are aware. There's a snap that's coming quickly, and man, your DNA is going to change in ways that all of a sudden you thought your Akash was open before. Wow, it won't just be access to information. It's going to be abilities to move energy. We're energetic beings. Now you're in a realm where manifestation It's pretty much your call. And the delay that we used to have here in 3D, no more delays. You can move energy in ways that's next on my wish list. Is when I had been given some of the things we're going to talk about in a little bit. One of the things I was asked is, Kumu asked if, she said, I know you feel energies now. She said, can you move it yet? And I went, what do you mean yet? She goes, oh yeah, soon you're going to be able to manipulate energy and move it in ways that you wish to move it. But that was just a matter of, being in connection with it. However, understand that you're bringing fourth dimensional abilities into this realm. There was a reason why you get to do that. And that is not the norm yet. Because although the angelic realm in that higher dimension has been here and waiting and offered to help, and they can't intervene though, can they? But they can pass the baton to somebody on this side, and that's what's happened.
So they pass the baton to you to energetically anchor, because you're a very grounded sort of person. You've been in the real world for a long time in that other world. So
I incarnated here for this purpose, to catch up with them, but somehow bring my awareness around to remember what the hell I was doing here. And at that point, the ability for them to give me the ability to negate negative energy into light. This is what light beings do. This is when we all become light bodies. Here's the process has begun. It's begun in all of us. But let's say I've had an accelerant that's helped me get where I am.
yeah. So was there something Shyama said to you on the second time, directing you a little further? And what was that?
Well, I asked questions about myself. I said, if I was a Telosian, do I have a name? She said, well, you're beginning to learn these things on your own, but I like Starbuck in the meantime. And so that's kind of where that ended. I wanted to know more about what I did. And she said, well, you're learning more about that too. Just let that unfold on its own. Uh-huh. Then we had conversations about that I'm not ready to go into detail in, but I will say this. She wondered what I thought about, now that Ethereum was back in the hands of a master alchemist, what she thought my opinion was about that.
Ethereum,
this is material.
The Ethereum is it's like the Bitcoin currency. Is that what you're talking about? Oh, you're not talking about the supplement Ethereum? What do you?
It's not a supplement. Raw Ethereum was it's prima matra. It's creation material that was seeded here long ago for a purpose during a dimensional overlap. I know that that's a lot to take in.
No, that's okay. Where do we get it?
Oh, well, it's going to be a lot for others. You can't get it.
Right. You can't get it, but
it's not that kind of thing. And I know people hear about what's happened to me. That's, of course, going to be the first thing they're going to want to know. Where do I get that stuff? It doesn't happen like that. And let me say this first. Unless you're fully aligned, it wouldn't do you a bit of good anyway.
Mm-hmm. So you are taking the Ethereum essence, prima matra.
Let's say I have been nourished by Ethereum since May. And there are different colors of it, which have different detoxifying and regenerative effects, and the ability to help open your DNA at an accelerated rate. Yes, I've had access to this stuff for a while.
Do they eat food in Telos? Are they?
Yes,
they're
vegetarian.
They're vegetarian. They eat. And what is their relationship to the civilization on the surface? I mean, I heard they clean our atmospheres when it gets really, polluted. And
they're not subject to any of that. And again, they're all hands off. So they may be witnessing it, but the pollution and the things that we see on the planet, they're not affected by in their realm. That is not part of their culture, their environment. They're not, none of that's going on. That's not to say that the physical earth isn't going through some changes. And to us, when we see things like all of these markers should be indications to people that Earth's physical consciousness, which is a cosmic cycle, her consciousness isn't rising because we all kumbaya long enough to get her past and over the hump. Her consciousness is a cosmic cycle. And she was ready to move from the third dimension into the fourth. We just happen to benefit from being on the planet while this is taking place. And if we wish to grow with it, our vibration just needs to match at the time that that's about to take place. There will be those who will go, and there will be those that will choose, I don't want that. But regardless of what we want, we're just sentient beings on the planet, critters, if you will, who kind of go along with the program. But New Earth she's spawning. She's just about here. And when we see all the things we see as violent, earthquakes, tsunamis, volcanoes, and there's a multitude of it. There's a whole freaking channel on YouTube that just does a month long of violent weather all over the planet. It's crazy to watch, but it's taking place. That's Gaia just adjusting to the next thing. When we see these wildfires that have been devastating for us humans, to her, watch my regrowth in 6 to 8 months. To her, it's just another growing pain, but we don't see it that way. Maybe one day we'll take some lessons from all that and really understand the balance between she and us. But this is a hard lesson for us.
Well, that's what our ascension is about. We can't ascend because unless we understand the earth and we realize that we're living inside the earth. These are our earth suits. These are earth bodies, and it's an extension of this great being.
These are temporary, and that's good news too. Now, I don't know what a light body really is in the end, but that's a crystalline body as opposed to this carbon-based thing, which would explain why the Lemurians look so ageless. That stuff doesn't age. And there's no health problems that you issue because this physical thing it's meant to wear out. Yeah, I don't know how old those people get, but those do not wear out.
Well, so how did you leave it with Shyama? Were you going to come back? You said that some of them are off planet now. I don't know how much of that you want to talk about. What's happening? Where are they? And are you going back? And can you take us with you?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. There's actually a different portal nearby. The other one has significance for me, but there was one that is amazing that I've marked. And when I've been asked to take some people there before, and that's what we've been doing. I'm going to do it. I'm back there at the end of the month for a couple of weeks, and there's the list is growing on, can you take me up to where this place is? This one's a little bit easier to find. It's not, it's not on a trail, but when you see this, it looks like the magnificent opening to a throne room in Shasta. So I'll begin to explain what that envision is, somewhere down the line, but it's incredible.
What did Shyama say to you about your next step?
Oh, we're in the middle of it. For the human beings that say, well, winter solstice came and went, nothing happened. I got news for you. You're in the middle of it. Look around. The
middle of what, though? We're in the middle of. We're in the middle of what exactly?
Consciousness change for the planet.
Okay.
The planet's consciousness is rising. And now this is the explanation for why lots of others of us connected to that by here, have you ever met more people who have more questions, Alan, now and don't know who I asked? Because I can't talk to my family about any of this, and I can't really talk to my friends about it. There seems to be a rash of people that are already coming to the surface that go, God, I know something's different, but who can I ask?
Well, for me, it's always been like that, actually. So, yeah.
Don't you see it accelerating at a rapid rate these days,
Well,
though?
I've just always been in that world. But I think something is accelerating. You're absolutely right. Something is shifting. The ordinary reality is being amplified, and people are having emotional breakdowns or breakthroughs. It depends. So,
Yeah, the Dark Knight shows itself up in different ways for different people, and sometimes more than once. But that's just kind of clearing away, the stuff that needs to dissolve.
so this talk here today, it's kind of an introduction, because I know you have a lot more. Like, once you
Yes.
bring, people can digest this and they kind of adjust their frequencies, and then you can give them the other stuff, which I think this is sort of a training process.
Maybe this is a good place for us to pause. And then you and I are going to pick up on what's next, because really that's the meat and potatoes. And it was really after talking with you last Friday and processing really the enormity of all of it. It's not to say that Telos and the Lemurians were a miraculous thing. It was. That in itself is a cool story. But where we really are and what that really means, and the evidence we have to show, people are finally going to get it from a guy who hasn't been in the spiritual world, pushing those buttons for 20 years. No, no, no. I'm one of you guys that in the last 2 years, look at what's happened. And since August, look at what's happened. Here is the accelerated timeline.
So do you have a prediction for anything people can do as the next solstice, next equinox? Actually, I'm going to be at Suzanne Ross's next equinox event in Sedona. So
Spring, good.
spring, yes. So we'll meet there.
If I don't see you before, that's where we will see each other.
Great, great, great. But what about for the world, listening? What do you have? Do you have
If I
anything?
could tell you that, I would. I'd be happy to give you a date and time, but we're linear thinking. And that's not the stopwatch that the universe uses in the next realm. So it's the more time I get to spend there, honest to God, the harder it is to come back in this footprint and think in these terms, rather from a broader, everybody's part of one and we're all pulling in the same direction.
Right.
It's hard to leave that environment and that culture and come back here and witness all of the duality and how extreme it's become. The good news is that we're not far away from putting all this in our rearview mirror and being in this next place. My point is that I found my way there and I know how. And I know why I found my way there first. It's so I can help the rest of you get to where I am and you can see and experience what I am. I thought when all this began happening to me, Alan, I thought, well, it'd be great if I could give people a 1, 2, 3 on how they get here too. It ain't like that. There's no list because all their journeys are different, but I can give you some breadcrumbs on what I did. And maybe there are some things that I did that you can do.
But what did you do?
You got to find your own way there.
But what can you
I've
give
been
us?
ingesting Ethereum and that helped. And
Well,
that's just not an option.
Give us a couple of more breadcrumbs, if you don't mind.
Whatever people can do to get themselves aligned physically, understand what your chakras are and what they really mean. That you're an energetic being, and each one of those, once you can clear that, then your connection to manifest the things you want is clear. this last month, I've been blown away with the speed at which I wish to manifest things. Blown away. There's lots of cosmic things that come together to make those times really right. And when they're right for me, they're right for everybody if you understand kind of how to go about it. But none of that comes until you're in alignment. Only then, when you're grounded to Gaia and when your connection to source is complete, man, now your beacon just got lit, helping the planet, first of all, because you're holding more light here. But holy cow, this exchange of information and cool source, wow, open up your floodgates, because there's part of your journey that's different from the rest of us, where you're supposed to be exchanging this information, because everything's always an energy exchange. What I've experienced when you and I are together, now my experience becomes yours and yours becomes mine. And the two of us have just added a wonderful new contribution to the Akash for everyone else to benefit from. But we were supposed to have this intersection. Everybody's having their own, if the purpose to help the universe evolve is what we're supposed to be here to do, which I believe we've accomplished our goal. Sometimes those are great things, sometimes they're not great things, but they're all lessons and they all contribute to knowledge, don't they?
So what can we leave? I mean, that's great. I appreciate that. I appreciate your passion and your effort to help. And I think that's probably also why you were chosen, because you have this passion to help others through their suffering, basically, because
Yeah.
it hasn't been an
Well,
easy.
I don't want to call it that, but let's just say that everybody needs healing and that I've got some tools that can help them do that.
Right. So what can you leave people with just for now to contemplate? Because I'd like to do this maybe every week, have a discussion and go deeper and deeper into this.
Well, we need the initial, I see this was phase one of phase, there's two.
Okay.
The next conversation, you and I need to wrap up the part that we were deciding last Friday when was going to be appropriate. And we agree, and so does everybody else. It's time for everybody to know this part too. So that's going to be important, and you and I need to do that sooner than later.
Okay.
Then that's going to spur lots of interest and communication and discussions. Then we can respond to that. The mission isn't for me to continue to just perpetuate the shit I know. Excuse me the expression. It's to let others now take in what they've heard. And, now there needs to be an exchange. The tribes coming together and they got more questions, especially with the guy who's just had the latest experience and it was with light beings. Yeah, fill me in. That's the news.
Your latest experience was with light beings. Oh, that's what we're going to get to next time. Yeah. Right. Right. No, this is you are an explorer of new realities. That's why I call my show New Realities. You are. And it keeps...
Alan, you were the guy that was supposed to help carry this message. Again, you've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah.
So when the people who had a level of awareness ready without question to at least consider this perspective, we're ready. It was supposed to be through your audience. Now we'll see how far it carries beyond that, but these people have been waiting to hear this information. Here we go.
Great. No, I'm really honored. And let's maybe in next spring or summer, we can take a trip back up to those doorways.
Who knows?
Who knows?
I'm pretty nomadic these days. You might find me knocking on your door for lunch in New York one day.
Okay, you're welcome to come anytime. You can knock on my door.
Right.
It's like I'm inside. Like these are people live in caves here in New York. They're little like caves out of stone here. So
look, I've been in and out of New York many times for hospitality purposes.
I know
and-
you have a whole other life that we don't have to talk
oh
about,
God.
but you're doing something different now, and you are on it.
Yeah, this is
You're,
pretty cool.
it is. So yeah, so you go up to Shasta every once in a while and just kind of check it
I
out.
love it there. I'm drawn. It's not that I don't love these other places in the country, because I do. I, I'll drive across country because I know it's in between. But Shasta, there's something there that I can't really articulate properly that is just draws you back.
Well,
The first time I went, my intent was to go for a week. I stayed for 5.
well, have you been to Mount Rainier? That is a beautiful mountain along the same line. It's actually more lush than
No.
Shasta. There's a place called Paradise,
Yeah.
Mount Adams, all those mountains in the Cascade Range. Mount St. Helen, of course, was something, but Mount Adams is great. That's where these UFOs come out of the mountain. You go to James Gilliland's place. Have you been to East City Ranch? That's just north of Portland. There's
No, I haven't really gotten out like that. People ask me, have you been here? Have you been here? I have not yet, but I'm interested. The thing is, there's an energetic pull in Shasta, and that is what brings me back there. I can spend an afternoon there by myself without anything else, and that is an awesome day. Hey, offer me something better somewhere else, and I will consider going. But there's something about that place for everyone that visits that's infectious. It's just that energy that you get there is unmistakable, and
yeah.
it's hard to give up. I love Sedona too. I didn't get a chance to really hike the way that I wished, but that's a different kind of energy.
Yeah.
I understand why they call Shasta the root for the planet's chakra. I get that. People argue now it's the heart chakra. Well, you call it what you want, but holy cow, there is an anchor there, and you feel that energetic presence when you're there.
Yes. Lowell, I appreciate, that, well, first, that you're not doing this for yourself. You are on mission. You are
Yes.
part of the team, and a team
Yes.
captain in a way. So
Yeah, well, there's more, buddy. You know about the captain part, and that's going to be harder to reveal when the day comes. But I'm getting bolder about that. We'll get to light being integrations next, and that'll be hard enough for people to digest. Let's just leave them with, if they wanted evidence that people have had contact with angels, they're going to get to see it.
and then maybe you'll lead that in when we do it in Sedona. You'll lead that practice.
I hope that we'll actually be able to call those things in ourselves in places where we're together, instead of having to show pictures of other things. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, next time we'll show some pictures of those light beings too. Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that's I know we've raised people's curiosity by suggesting the idea. We're going to actually show them pictures of what happened.
All right, great. We will do that next week sometime soon.
Perfect. Sounds good.
Hey, thanks for your time. And I have to say thanks for your energetic enthusiasm here on planet Earth. And
it's worth it. And regardless of what's going on around us, I get to see a different perspective that people kind of ignore. It's worth it. And what's coming, even more important, the word magnificent. There isn't a word in my vocabulary, and I like to think that I'm pretty articulate, to describe where we're going. And it's like right there.
The magnificence that's coming to planet Earth, magnificence, or beyond that.
Yeah.
Well, that's exciting. Thank you for
You're welcome.
even suggesting that. All right. This is Alan Steinfeld with Lowell Johnson. I would say the guy who saw the city of Telos. I mean, that's one way. But more than that, you are upgrading the planet with the energetics that you found at that place.
That would be fair to say.
Thank you, Lowell, and we will talk soon. And thank you all for watching. Okay. I'm just going to stop that recording.